This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because this is how we meet each other nowadays over Zoom. It's the only way. And tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here and have a conversation with you. It's going to be fun.
Nice.
So I'm Chris Harper, an entrepreneur. I've been doing this
Great
for
name,
over
by the way. Great name. One of the best.
I mean, hey, I'm not going to disagree with you there. I'm not going to disagree. But long story short, I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade now. From everything from light switch covers to burning CDs to guilt-free cocktail mixers
wait. Light switch covers. You can
Yes.
actually make a business out of light switch covers? You gotta be
Apparently. Yeah, not a very big one, Chris. It's something to note, but
it's not a billion-dollar business. You're not going to be the Elon Musk of light switch covers.
Well, you know what? I'm sure there is a light switch cover company out there that's doing $1 billion in revenue because light switches are everywhere.
Everywhere.
And when
That's right.
And when I say light switch covers, what I was really doing, I think, was just continuing my entrepreneur journey in some form or fashion. This was actually first year university. I have no idea where the idea came from. I don't remember. I was playing sports one day and I was in the locker rooms at the university and I'm like, man, they were talking about school spirit or something. I'm like, man, you could have a football light switch cover that says, the Gators University or whatever, right? So I employed my mother in my basement and I started making custom covered light switch. Like I'd get light switch covers and then we'd customize them and
Nice.
I sold those to whoever wanted them
Wow.
basically and
See,
knock on doors.
entrepreneurship is in your blood. It's in your blood.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it started actually, Chris. I started Christmas caroling back in the day and I found out you could do that and get paid money to Christmas carols. So I did that for a bit.
How's your voice?
Which was
Can you sing?
not good. No, absolutely not. So actually, I became a small child CEO at the time. We decided to bring my friend's much younger sister with us because she was cute, and funny, and the people loved her. So she was like our prop.
You had staff already. You had staff. I love it.
Exactly. I know. I was shocked actually. And as I talk to you about this, it becomes funny. I haven't thought about it in a while. So yeah, I've been doing it for some time, and
serial entrepreneur since you were a kid,
since I came out the womb. Yeah, pretty much. And that's why people have those nature versus nurture conversations when it comes to this. And I'm pretty biased. I think on some level, it's definitely in my nature. Because both my parents are not entrepreneurs. They're great people, but they took the traditional route with jobs. So I guess nature versus nurture for me, it was all nature.
The time too. I mean, the times were very different. It's funny how people look back at your parents and you go, how come I can't do what they're doing? It's like, well, you're living in a completely different world from the world that they were living in. It's like every moment is new, every world is new, every generation is new. You got to do something new, and entrepreneurship is the thing for you. It sounds like.
Yeah, Chris, that's a really good point, actually, because I grew up in the 90s and I grew up, I had an uncle living with us at the time in my family house, and he was going to school and he had a computer. And I know, I just lived on that thing, throw the floppy disk in, play whatever game I could on the thing. So yeah, I kind of grew up in the early internet era as a little kid and was just loved it. How could you not love a computer if you're a small kid in the 90s? It was just something special, So that kind of led me down the path of always being on the computer. I think I lived on the computer my whole life. My parents used to tell me to come down and go to work or something, and I'd still be on the computer.
Go mow the lawn. No, I don't want to touch grass. I don't want to touch grass.
No, exactly. Or my dad would be going to work at like 5 a.m. and I hadn't slept yet. And the computer was like in a dining room. It was like the family computer, so I couldn't hide away from anyone. Just in there hitting the old mechanical keyboard. And you remember these computers? They were loud, right? You'd start it up, it's like a Boeing engine,
Yeah, exactly.
or whatever. So it's kind of
And
cool too
now
to see.
people pay extra for the mechanical keyboards again, because I have it was like you pay extra to buy
I
those
know.
keyboards.
It's a running joke at my company, actually, when we hire somebody new. Well, actually, one of the hiring questions for the tech guys is always, what's your favorite keyboard? And you're right, they get crazy now. Mechanical keyboards, you get a Keychron or something, it's $300 keyboard.
I know, it's nuts. It's nuts. Plus, you got to have the lights, all the lights, the
I mean,
ambient
Chris, how
lighting.
can you not have the lights? You need the lights, and then you need to be able to customize it too. You can have whatever you want. I'm guilty. I love a good mechanical keyboard. I love it. Do you use one, Chris? Are you a mechanical guy or no?
No, actually, my wife's the mechanical keyboard person. I like the quietest keyboard ever, so I can be in meetings and keep typing, and nobody needs to know I'm typing. So that's the way. That is the way.
Yeah,
but that's just the way for me. Everybody's got their own way.
Well, look, Chris, if you want to get nerdy with mechanical keyboards for a second, you could get dampeners. So that dampens the noise of it. You can get red switches, so they're quiet and they're smooth. Yes. And then my co-founder has dampening in it so that it quiets it down, and you can level up how loud or quiet it is. Okay. Yeah, these guys completely nerd out. I will. I will. Yeah, it goes down a hole.
Let's get back to your passion. So you're an entrepreneur. You've done a million businesses. What are you doing now?
Yeah, what's your right now? Yeah, right now the current passion is making the world more efficient through innovating in the background check industry. And how do those two things correlate? Making the world more efficient and making the background check industry more efficient. It's actually extremely correlated. If the world's largest companies, the white collar jobs out there, they want to, and healthcare, if they're growing, they need to hire, and reducing the time to hire is critically important to growing a business. And then, by design, that's going to make the world a better place, and hopefully we get some innovation out of that. So we like to think we definitely do play a role in making the world more efficient by reducing the time to hire, by making the background check process a lot more time efficient, a lot quicker, and then making sure you're hiring the right people. And you're not saying, hey, I'm not going to do the background check because this person I want to hire at wherever you're hiring them from, the background check's going to take too long, so maybe I'll skip it, right? And that can be a big issue too. Or you wait three weeks to get the background check, instead of hiring that person. And 3 weeks makes all the difference, especially in the fast-paced world of tech.
Yeah. Well, how did you get into this exciting world of background checks?
Yeah, it's a good question. So,
from light switches to background checks. I'm trying to
from light switches to cocktail mixers to distributed computer to the Christmas caroling. The list goes on.
Cocktail mixers to distributed computer. That sounds like a leap. That sounds like a bit of a leap.
Yeah, definitely. I often, it's a great question, and I'm glad you're asking this, and I'm glad I'm on the podcast, because I don't think about this much. How did I fall into this? It's just kind of, you're doing it, you're in it, and you don't think too much about it. Yeah. So now that you ask, I vividly remember, it's kind of strange, and I don't know how people come up with ideas. Generally, I know certain things are. I was on LinkedIn helping somebody set up a profile that had never had a LinkedIn, but had a bunch of job experience, right? They were older in the job market, and they had been in a career, Chris, for 20 years, and they had switched and they wanted to go look for something else. Right. So in the process of setting up this LinkedIn, because the person wasn't so used to using computers at the time, I don't know what it was. I don't know where it came from, but I'm setting everything up. I'm like, oh, right. I forgot you can just select your own education. You can just pick any employer. You can do anything here, and none of it is verifiable. Yeah, I can just make anything up. I could make a beautiful profile with a sweet headshot, a nice header picture. I went to Cornell. I see your Stanford flag in the background. Yeah, I got my MBA at Stanford, right? And you can make this thing look really nice. And I thought, is any of this verifiable? Are they not verifying this? How much fraud is going on here, right? And that kind of led me down the road of looking into the industry. I had no idea, nothing, not even an iota of knowledge of the background check industry. Didn't even know what it was. And that's kind of how I got into this, was setting up the LinkedIn profile and saying, how many users does LinkedIn have? How many people on LinkedIn claim to have a degree? Well, a whole lot of them. How many people claim to have worked here? And it sent me down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
Well,
how we ended up here.
that's an interesting question. So, did you ever work for a company that needed to do a background check on you, or
I did.
have you
Yeah,
always
I
been an
did. Yeah,
entrepreneur?
that's
Yeah.
so yeah, I've had some normal jobs. I worked
Normal
I
jobs.
I have, yes, I have had, and I don't mean it in like a negative way.
Of course.
Just like a
We've
normal, like getting a paycheck from somebody
Yeah.
else
Yeah,
is what
we've
I
all
would
had
consider a normal.
I think we've all gone, almost all of us have gone through a normal job at some point, whether it was in high
Yes,
school or whatever.
yeah. So I've had some weird ones. I sold corn at festivals on the side of the road when I was a
Ooh,
kid.
nice. I love corn.
Yeah,
Did you butter them
I
up
do
and
too,
did you
actually. Exactly. Go ahead. I did butter them up. If we're getting not to get too out of left field here, but yeah, we used to have we had a roaster on the side of the road. The guy would go to festivals. We'd roast the
nice?
corn in this thing, pull it out, and then dip it in butter, put whatever you want on it. Happy days. But
Nice.
no, back to
Well,
your
everything, it sounds like everything you were doing was in demand. Like everything
correct.
that you worked on. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Good call out there. But yeah, no, I did have a job. I worked as a territory manager for a large liquor company. I don't know if you're familiar with Diageo, but it was competitor to
Oh
Diageo.
yeah,
They
I
represent.
absolutely know them. Yep.
Yeah, so I worked for their biggest competitor at the time, and I think they got bought or sold. It was called Mark Anthony. They represented Palm Bay, Mike's Hard Lemonade, bunch of
Hmm.
wines and stuff like that. So worked there for a year, did well, and then I left and I went to go work for a large grocery chain at the time as a territory manager for them in Canada. I ended up not taking the job, but they did background check me, and I remember thinking how funny the process was, but I'm not even correlating that at the time. I didn't think I really did correlate it at the time. Let's put it this way: it wasn't very, it wasn't very detailed. Let's say this
Yeah.
background check that I received. Yeah,
Right. So you were
it's
looking at it from okay, look at all these people on LinkedIn, look at all these wonderful credentials that everybody's posting, and you're like,
yeah,
how much of this is real and how much of this is not real? And that's when it's sort of a trick. It sort of popped into your head, something needs to be done. So, did you dig
yeah,
into the industry, or did you just go ahead and start the company
yeah.
before you looked into it?
Yeah, I went in and I'm a proponent of doing this. I definitely went in and went full schizophrenic research mode. Um, you know, lights on, 4 in the morning every night. That exciting kind of spark of the original. Maybe there's something here. Is something that's hard to replicate. And yeah, I deep dove into it, and it led me down the route of calling recruiters. I assumed recruiters were doing this, and I just
Mhm.
cold emailed recruiters. I said, "Hey, I have this idea to kind of do something like this. Is this something you'd be interested in? I'm not building it yet, but would you be interested?" Some of them got back to me, some of them didn't pick up the phone, and then they're like, "We actually don't do this. This is a background check company thing." I'm like, "What's a
Yeah,
background check company?"
they throw it over the wall to the background check companies. Yeah, I've done
Yeah,
HR consulting in the past, so I'm kind of familiar with the space a little bit, and it is a
yep,
mess. It's a complete mess.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
a
definitely something
nightmare.
that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, and we're fixing it. I mean, the nightmare is worse, especially when we looked at COVID and we looked at remote work, and that's kind of when our business got off the ground. We started this business in late 2021, so into the COVID era, and one of the beneficial things there for us as a business actually was it actually helped us pivot our business into a certain direction, which was remote work and global work.
Hmm.
Companies really, Chris, went, "Hey, we're going to hire people in Mexico. We're going to hire people in Argentina. We're going to hire people in India. We're going to hire engineers from all over the world." Well, that's great because you're saving, salary costs. You're saving your expenditures as a company, and you're getting great talent in these other parts of the world. But it's very complicated. Number one, from the payroll perspective, which there's great companies out there that are help solving international payroll problems, but then the background check, what a nightmare that's been for companies. So we went in and we're helping companies all over the world solve that. So because when you're hiring international, it's definitely a very important thing that you have to consider is,
Oh,
who is this
especially
person?
and remote work is, I mean, basically what happened with COVID is it blew everything to remote work. Everything
Yeah,
became remote, and companies said, why do I need to hire an American, or why do I need to hire an expensive when I can hire anybody from anywhere? But that sort
yeah,
made this business, you know, exponentially more difficult because you've got people from all over the world, and you've got to check credentials from institutions everywhere, right?
yes,
So
yeah.
what did you do to make your your service different from everybody else's?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So the big thing was when we looked into this, not to go too long into this, when we looked into verifying credentials, we found we wanted to find something that was the biggest pain point in the market for the background check companies. And they all said education verification. More specifically, they said international, and they said it's also their biggest growing segment and from a volume standpoint. So that's when myself and my co-founder, David Alexander, we got to work, with a pretty simple idea that we could do this for over right now, Chris. We do this for over 88,000 institutions across the world. How we did it differently was the way education verifications were being done prior to ZippedScript was either one of two ways. And the first way was more common than the second. So the first way, number one, was call centers, lovely call centers, which everyone loves. And a lot of people are shocked, actually, when you communicate with them that call centers are being used to verify degrees. And in some countries, Chris, they even have what they call, quote, runners, unquote. People that get on scooters and drive down to the institutions and go to the registrar office and knock on the door. Hey, I want to verify Chris Kalabukis' degree.
Well,
are you there?
That is the most accurate way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You're going direct to the source, right?
It works. It might be the most, labor intensive, but it actually works because you've got boots on the ground and they go over there and they can confirm it. Of course, there's a trust chain there. You have to make sure the guy's actually on his scooter and he's actually gone there and he's actually, maybe takes a picture or whatever. But yeah, I mean, so that's how they were doing it before, and now they're not.
Yeah. So now that's still being done. If in certain areas of the world, there are certain regions that don't even have websites that have institutions, but we'll call them less than 1%, right? So the way we went about doing this was we kind of just reimagined the process altogether. The other way people are doing this was what we call institution permission education verifications, Chris, which is tying in directly with the school, getting approval from the school, and partnering with the school. And you can imagine with over 250,000 accredited institutions all over the world, partnering with 250 plus thousand institutions would take you probably 100 years, maybe longer. Higher education institutions don't tend to move quickly. So how did ZippedScript differentiate here? What we did was we said, who owns that credential? Does the institution own that degree, or does the graduate own degree, or do they both own it? What are the rights of this? Well, we came to find out through our lovely legal team and many very helpful people that are a lot smarter than me when it comes to the law, that yes, the graduate does own that data. So we go in via user permission, and we were the only company in the world that started doing that at the time. And that's led to us verifying over 23 million degrees. We have them stored in a database. And we can do this all over the world. We do it faster than anyone, and we're more global than anyone. And it's because going through users is very effective, Chris, because the user, when you're doing a background check on a user that you have to do an education verification, they're normally immigrating or getting a job. So their incentive is very high to go through the process.
Yeah, and they're trying, and they're not, as long as they're not trying to hide anything. Because I mean, I'm assuming you've heard of the AI interviews that people have been having.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when I heard that, it just blew my mind. I thought, do they really think that they're going to be able to get hired after going through an AI interview?
You'd be amazed. Maybe you wouldn't be amazed, Chris. You're in the loop, but it's actually you're hitting on a great point of the ZippedScript business model as well. Is we're the most secure way of doing an education verification because you can't falsify those credentials. The only way you could falsify your degree with ZippedScript is if you hacked into the institution's database and manipulated the credentials you used to log in, then manipulated the documents in the back end. At that point, you're probably in Virginia working for the CIA. So we're not too worried about that.
Exactly. So you've built, I mean, I'm assuming that the database that you've built is not of everybody. It's just of the people that have been requested, right? So somebody requests something, and then now you have a cache, so you can, if this person moves on to another job, then if somebody else comes to you, they go, hey, Chris Kalbukis is already in the database, we already have him, boom, you're done.
Correct.
So that's what you're trying to build, this massive database of legit credentials.
Essentially, and what I would say is nobody at the time when we came in was doing anything like that. In the industry, they held this vision of like maybe a blockchain style wallet, maybe storing credentials, but nobody was acting on it. And what I would say, just as a point of clarification, Chris, is we have clients across the world in the background check industry, and we do education verifications for them. And we do them with a product that we call Degree Connect. Now, we don't store those credentials unless our contract allows us to store those credentials. The way we went about building this database, actually, Chris, was by marketing to graduates directly in Mexico, United States, and all over the world, and saying, hey, do you want to put yourself at the top of the virtual resume pile, make yourself more attractive to employers? Why don't you come into our platform, verify your degree for free, get a blue check mark on LinkedIn if you'd like to add it.
Nice.
And then you can have a link on your resume, and the employer or the background check company can immediately unlock it. So it builds trust from the outset. And that's how we went about getting just over 23 million degrees in our database across Mexico and the United States right now.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's time to think like a futurist. It's year 2035. 10 years from now, where will we be? Where will we be in 10 years? I mean, is AI going to basically take over your entire industry and you'll be on to the next thing after light switches, or where will you be in 10 years? You think it's just going to get better, or?
I'm an optimist by nature as well. What I would say to you, if we're talking specifically about the background check industry, I see no two ways about it. I think it's going to be, like I see a lot of things going. It'll be something native on your phone. It'll be an application that holds your credentials, and they're immediately shareable, unlockable, et cetera. I think that's what's going to happen to our driver's licenses, our passports, everything like that. And I think I think what we're doing in the background check industry is a great way to incentivize governments to make these documents more accessible and more easy. It's very easy to lose a driver's license. You often don't find people losing their phones that much. You have Find My iPhone. It's just so much more convenient to have all these things on your phone. We already pay on our phone. So I think it's just going to be a world of credentials that are immediately unlockable, and it just makes sense. I think the way of paper for a lot of things, or physical things, is just not necessary.
So do you ever think that this might be folded into some kind of trust database? Because this is actually a big deal, sort of trust on the internet, that someone is who they are. They represent they represent a real person, and here's their real background, and here's who they really are. And I have this sense that we're going to get at some point we're going to get some kind of CDBC style blockchain trust LLM maybe of me, right? And every single piece of data about me will be in this blockchain or whatever, and then including background information. So it'll be there, and it'll be stored, and it'll be immutable. So they'll be able to go in, and then they wouldn't need to go to a company like yours. They would just go to this sort of trust record and go, this is Chris Kalaboukis, and this is everything we need to know, everything that is true about him. Do you see that happening at some point within the next 10 years?
I can see that totally happening in the next 10 years. I think there's people, I know for a fact there's people working on such things right now. A lot of this depends on timing, and I think a lot of this depends on where is like the general population at with accepting these kind of things. I'm personally a big cryptocurrency and blockchain enthusiast, as maybe a hobbyist, I would say. And we looked at utilizing this in our tech stack early on, very early on. And we sell to the enterprise, Chris, right? We sell to end users as well. And as much as I want to think that everybody's ready, they're not. But I think, and
probably like 90% of the companies you work with are like, what? We don't want to be.
Well, you know what? And I won't mention any names or anything, but I think it's like, a lot of people talk about AI. It's the hot thing to talk about right now. Sure, it's spectacular. We utilize it as part of our own tech stack. But a lot of this is signaling, right? It's like when cryptocurrency was hot in 2017, everybody and their mother was adding stuff. We're going to tokenize commercial real estate. We're going to do this. Banks are talking about it, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
It might boost your stock price by a little bit to have an article or something out there about it. And I think the same thing was going on in my industry, in the background check industry, which is a lot of people talk about a lot of things to make them feel like maybe they're innovating. And maybe just the communication of that gives them the placebo effect. where we're the opposite. We actually innovate. We're meeting the people where they are, and we're not trying to be too pushy. Yeah, I think there's a fine line. How hard do you push something, or how hard do you not push it?
Yeah, but you got to have that aspect, right? So it's like whatever's the hot thing, you need to have sort of part of the hot thing. And you did. I'm assuming you did talk about blockchain and those kind of technologies during the blockchain times. Now you're talking about AI during the AI times, but you're actually using it. So that's
and
different.
see, it is. And you know what, we don't talk too much about what actually we're using with AI inside our tech stack. All we tell our customers is our turnaround times are shorter than they used to be. That's all they care about, right? But yeah, we can use it. But you're correct. It gets you thinking about it, and that's why I actually like to go back to it, Chris. This is something you just made my mind think of, actually. So I thank you for that. Which is, maybe I do need to think more about blockchain right now. Maybe because it's not being talked about as much. Maybe that's the time to think about it. You had that classic Buffett quote from back in the day: "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." So maybe I need to do a little callback and start thinking about it again.
Well, the thing is that the database that you're building should be immutable, right? Like once you've built the database saying that, so and so went to Stanford, so and so did this, this is like historical fact, right?
Yeah, it is.
So it's a historical fact that's not going to change. So once you build this database, putting it into the blockchain or something else that's immutable, you could say, we're the only company that has an immutable record of somebody's educational background, and that could be a selling point for you. I'm doing your marketing for you, man. I'm doing your marketing for you.
Don't stop. Keep going. I love this. I love this. Yeah, it's you're definitely getting me to think about this, and it's definitely something I'm going to think about and have a conversation with
Cool.
probably tonight.
Awesome.
And Chris, maybe we'll touch base on that offline, off the podcast in the future.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So this has been great. Thank you so much. I mean, I never knew there was so much going on back there, because I'm glad that somebody is actually doing the right thing when it comes to this stuff, because I think it's really it's more important than ever because of all of this remote work and people coming from, and people having, there's stories every day in the news about people having 4 or 5 jobs and working for 4 or 5 different companies all at the same time. And it's like, this is not happening. So
I have to jump in here, Chris, and that's part of the reason this has all been going on. And people have no idea how much fraud is actually happening, because when the fraud happens, it's not talked about. Companies don't want to bring this up. This is not going to hit the press. The only time it hits the press is if it's major, right? And it can't not hit it because it leaked or something. But it is happening every day, many times a day. And you just hit it on the head there with remote work. The need for this is more than ever, and more importantly, because it was taking so long, because the process was so egregiously long, no one was doing it. So we're making it more effective, so you can trust the people you work with, not run into scary issues, and we have the right people in the right jobs, making sure everyone's safe and everyone's happy.
Fantastic. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Best way to get in touch with me is you can hit me up on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn simple. It's my name, Chris Harper. And you can add ZippedScript to the end of that. Or you can shoot me an email. Throw my email out there online, harper@zippedScript.com. Shoot me an email if you want to chat about something interesting, or you have some ideas based off what you heard today. I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. So I'll put all that in the show notes, and they can go directly to you. So thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.